This is the Authority Company podcast, conversations with leaders that are designing our future. Hola, I'm Joe Pardavila, and I love talking to doctors. Don't get me wrong, I love talking to anybody, but doctors are kind of my top five. I mean, they have great stories and great jokes, and my guest today is very funny, and he has a remarkable story. His name is Dr. Mark Klaassen. He is the author of the new book, Voyage, following one surgeon on the journey of a lifetime. We're going to get into that journey. We're going to talk about how he became a doctor, how he chose orthopedics. We're going to come up with some ideas of how to fix healthcare. Yeah, in the next 30, 40 minutes, we're going to try to fix the healthcare system. We're going to get into all of that right now. Dr. Klaassen, welcome to the Authority Company podcast. How are you?
Very good. Thank you. Thanks for having me, Joe.
You're very welcome. Well, congratulations on the new book, your amazing career. And I will say, sometimes the term like your life is a movie gets thrown around so willy-nilly that it loses its meaning. But Doc, your life could be a movie. And who knows, now that you've written this book, it could be adapted into a feature film, because what an extraordinary adventure you've been on, from starting as a missionary's kid to becoming this amazing doctor and having this remarkable career. When you get caught at parties and people say, hey, so tell me about your backstory, are you there for 2 hours in the corner talking to people? Because there's so much to your life.
Well, thank you for your kind words. But yes, I've had an interesting life growing up as a missionary kid in South America. I grew up mainly in Colombia, although we were in Central America as well. I actually grew up in the Andes Mountains on an old German prison camp from World War II. And we actually had a boarding school for kids from a leper colony. And so my parents had all the boys, since we were three boys. And so we had, I had 40 Colombian brothers. So I actually used to think and dream in Spanish. My mom at home would try to talk English to us, but all our friends and everything was in Spanish. So it was very interesting. We had no running water. We had no electricity, but we had a generator, and we piped water in from the river. And then we had a cistern on the roof to collect drinking water. And it was an amazing childhood. I mean, I wouldn't trade it for anything. But it's funny because people ask me about TV shows in the 60s, and I'm like, I have no clue.
Oh, that's so. And I wonder, is it almost like reverse Castaway? Because you're basically born a castaway, and then you're going into, I guess, everyday modern America. What was that transition like for you? Like you said, you were basically dreaming in Spanish, speaking Spanish all day long. All of your friends were Colombian. What was the transition like once you got back to the States?
Well, my parents actually sent me back when I was in fifth grade. And the point of sending me back at that time was because mom was worried about me learning English and developing. They were worried about the education too. So I came to the States, to Elkhart, Indiana, actually, with another family. And they put me in fourth grade. I had been in fifth grade in a Colombian school. They put me in fourth grade. 2 weeks later, they moved me up to fifth grade. And 2 weeks later, they moved me up to sixth grade. So obviously, I was doing okay. But I would think in Spanish, or do my math in Spanish, and then I'd translate to English. I don't anymore. I mean, anymore, I do it all in English. But every once in a while, if I'm speaking at a Congress in Latin America for a long period of time and don't speak to anybody with English, I start to gradually change over again.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Well, and speaking of the journey that I kind of laid out at the top was, it didn't stop there for you. You didn't just go to school with a family at fifth grade, and obviously you were pretty advanced at that point. You became a doctor, which is, from what I understand, Doc, not very easy. So how do you make this jump from being a missionary's kid, spending your adolescence in Colombia, then coming to the States and choosing to be a doctor? How did that all go down?
Well, I was motivated. First of all, I matured relatively rapidly because at age 15, age 16, right in that area, my parents left me in the States and I was on my own. I mean, my parents didn't have any finances to help me. So I worked full time. I finished high school, took the hardest courses they could offer in high school, and was valedictorian at that time. Um, so I had a lot of openings in terms of scholarships and stuff like that. And that was very helpful for me. And then I was trying to decide, I was interested in mechanics and mechanical engineering. I was interested in architecture. I was also interested in marine biology. I liked the sciences a lot. For a while, I worked on a in the Keys, and I was actually a lab assistant for a marine biology course. Um, so I managed to do all these things, and basically it came down to medicine, and I was in sports. I was in soccer and basketball. So medicine, orthopedics seemed to tie everything together because I could get the mechanical side of things with joint replacements and with orthopedics, and I could get the science and the biology. And throughout my life, it really kind of all came together because of doing orthopedics. I had a saltwater aquarium for over 30 years. So I got my marine biology that way. And I do like to dive and to snorkel and do things like that. But I managed to build a couple houses and design them. And so I got my architecture. And then I have the engineers from all these orthopedic companies that come into my OR. And I've worked on development of some implants, and I've helped them to look at problems, and I've helped them to develop instruments and things like that. So I've got my mechanical engineering in as well. So orthopedics has tied it all together for me, and it's been a really amazing career. I've been so blessed.
Wow, that's so cool. So cool. I mean, first of all, I don't understand how you could have a family when you're like an architect slash marine biologist assistant slash medical student. It all sounds very overwhelming to me. And if I wanted to go back a little bit, because I'm wondering, and I don't know if this is too deep, but were there ever abandonment issues with your family because you're like, you're everything you knew was in Colombia. Then all of a sudden they ship you off to the States and you're essentially sort of on your own, even, you had some support there. Were there ever points in your life where like, why can't I have a normal mom and dad? Why can't my dad just like get a regular job or mom get a regular job? Like, was there any problem? Did you ever have to deal with that, or were you so focused on just like your education and work that you almost kind of forgot all about that?
No, my mom will share with me letters. In that time, I mean, you couldn't get on the phone. We didn't have iPhones. My parents didn't have phones, so we'd send a letter, and a letter would take a month to get there or a month to get back. So my mom has letters where I was so lonely and missing them and things like that made her cry. Um, and, there were times that we'd come back and we'd see our cousins with all of this stuff, mini bikes, neat toys, things like that that we never had. And I'd ask my dad, why he was a missionary and why he was in Colombia. Why couldn't we be in the States where we had all these big advantages? But in retrospect, you know, my dad would say, "Well, God had given them this direction, and this is what they were doing." And in retrospect, I would not trade my childhood for anything. I mean, it was such a great experience. I mean, we grew up, jumping the rocks in the river. We would build houses with bamboo. We would build tree houses. I mean, we never had a TV, but we just found all kinds of things to do. I would ride a horse into town because we lived about 2 miles away, by a horse trail. There was really not a road. I mean, you could make it there by with a Jeep, but there really wasn't a road. And I'd ride the horse into town to get the mail every day. And I'd have to catch the horse, and then sometimes I kept a good horse because those were harder to catch, depending on how aggressive I was. Sometimes I'd catch old Whitey, and he was easy to catch because he was old. Uh, so different horses were always interesting. At any rate, I had a pet monkey. I had a parrot. The monkey was Tomas. His name was Tomas, and he was really cool. He was an Amazon monkey. But I mean, how many kids are able to say that or do that?
Wow, that's so cool. Now, yeah, you have a couple kids, Matt and AJ, and I'm curious. There's that old Saturday Night Live bit with Dana Carvey. When I was your age, I would walk to school with 10 miles and try to guilt kids into how easy they have. When as your kids were growing up, how many times did you throw in the, hey, you never had to find a horse, strap them down and ride into to town to go get supplies. Like, did you throw a lot of that stuff as a parent growing up?
Well, that's kind of a natural thing to do. And yet, somehow or another, you have to instill in your kids a work ethic. You always want a better life for your kid. I don't care who you are. You want your kid to have it easier, better, or whatever than you. And my wife was awesome. I mean, she taught him the work ethic. I obviously was working all the time and very busy. But my kids have turned out fabulous. I mean, they have a work ethic. They appreciate things in life, and I can't ask. I've been so blessed from that standpoint. But yes, I mean, when we were growing up, I because of what I was doing, I could make their experiences a whole lot different than my experiences. Yet their experiences were pretty cool too because they got to experience some of the Latin American culture because I would travel to Latin America. Sometimes I would take them with me, and they experienced some of that stuff. My oldest son actually studied in Quito in Ecuador, and we actually had a exchange student from Ecuador. Her name was Valeria Val, and she stayed with us for a year. So she became their older sister, and I just recently happened to run into her when I was on my mission trip in Guatemala. Uh, and that was the weirdest thing because she was in the same city where our mission was, and we just happened to meet up together in Guatemala.
Wow.
Um,
That's so cool. Now, did your kids ever get a pet monkey though, or were you able to hold that over them? Like, hey, I had a pet monkey.
Well, I'll tell you a story. My kids never got a pet monkey, but my youngest son and his best buddy took up a collection at school, and they actually raised quite a bit of money. And they were determined to get a pet monkey in the States, and we kind of squelched that.
You see, Dad, you know what? It's not fair. You had a pet monkey and I don't get.
That's right. Uh, that's
Oh,
right.
that's
That's
awesome.
right.
All right. Well, let's get into the medical part. Thank you for indulging me with your backstory. But in the book, you write about the book I should mention is Bon Voyage, a beautiful doctor pun. I know you doctors love your puns, so Bon Voyage. But your medical philosophy is helping patients is everything. Now, I think it's been fully discussed and debated about the current state of the medical system, where essentially people are treated as ones and zeros. There's that lack of connection. I talk to doctors all the time, doc, and they say their number one complaint is they spend most of their time in paperwork, 95% of the time doing paperwork, and then 5% actually dealing with patients. So tell me how this philosophy of yours of helping patients is everything, how does that jibe in this current world of healthcare?
Well, it's not easy, and certainly you're right in terms of healthcare today. We spend way too much time on the electronic medical record, the EMR, and doing paperwork, and not actually face to face with the patient. But my challenge to people going into medicine, people that are wannabe doctors, is to look at other rewards, and those rewards are the rewards of changing someone's life. I don't care what your specialty is or where you are in medicine, or actually where you are in any kind of business, is you can make a difference in different people's lives in whatever you do. And it's amazing how many times you have an effect on someone and you don't even realize it. But as a surgeon, as a doctor, I would always try to connect with my patients. I'd always try to touch them and to make sure that they felt that there was a connection. And I think that's so important. That's the art of what we do, and it's so important to have that connection because the rewards are much more than financial rewards. There's so many rewards. What keeps you going is not what you make. What keeps you going are the rewards that you get from helping people, from changing lives, from making a difference in our world. And those are the rewards that really keep you going.
I love that. And you mentioned EMRs, and I've done enough healthcare podcasts to know that it's almost the old adage, no good deed goes unpunished, because I think the idea of EMRs was to make things easier. It essentially, what it was, I think about a decade or so ago, was let's make all our medical records electronic and let's be able to have access amongst different, healthcare facilities. But then it brings on this other issue of like the amount of paperwork. Is the paperwork side of it, and I'm telling you, doc, this is the one thing I hear all the time. Doctors are over it. There's too much of it. Is there anything that can be done to streamline it, or is it just part of the process? Like there's no way to shake it. Like there's certain things you just can't change. Tell me how, maybe if you had a magic wand, how you would sort of not correct things, but almost like improve things when it comes to this world of EMRs and just like a deluge of paperwork.
Well, the idea of an EMR is actually good, that it would go across all of medicine, but the reality is it doesn't. This EMR doesn't talk to that EMR, and this hospital doesn't share the stuff with this other hospital, and it's very hard as a doctor to get records, and so the patient. A lot of times we end up telling the patient, "Okay, you've got it. They're your records, so you're the one that has to help us get these things." And it's very, very frustrating. Um, from a personal standpoint, there are a number of things that can be helpful. And it's basically staff around you. It's your PA, it's your physician assistant, your nurse practitioner, your scribe. I mean, there are things that we can hire, and people that can help us manage that EMR time, and maybe make it so that you have more time with a face to face with my patient. So if I could walk into a room and talk to my patient directly and examine them directly, and if I can have a scribe uh, inputting things into the EMR, and then if I can have my PA and my nurse practitioner do some of the follow up, and my patient needed to feel that when they talked to my PA or when they talked to my nurse practitioner, it was like talking to me. And so if you can make those extensions, you can make a difference, and make it so that the patient feels connected and feels like they're being listened to, and they feel like they're being cared for. Unfortunately, medicine, we've gotten so subspecialized, like we're so narrow in what we do. We say, okay, we're just going to do, for me, like I just do joint replacement, but you also have to look at the entire patient. You have to look at a lot of other issues. So you have to be a psychologist, you have to be a general medicine, you have to be a family practice doc. And I think too many docs stick to this, and the minute the patient goes off into something else, they want to just get rid of them. And that is not good. I think that we're so fragmented in medicine that's an issue.
Hmm. All right. So now that's a doctor pet peeve I hear all the time. Now I'm gonna give you a patient pet peeve, and one of mine, doc, is the fact that you doctors, you don't know how to use a calendar, and it's like it's amazing how many times myself, my wife, family members go into a doctor's office. They have a set appointment at 12. They'll get in there a few minutes early, fill out the paperwork. They'll be like, all right, wait a few minutes. You wait out in the lobby for 5, 10 minutes. And then they bring you into the exam room. Then you go to the exam room, and then you're waiting another 10 minutes. And before you know it, you've been sitting around for 30 minutes before the doctors because they're so backed up with other patients. What is it with you guys in calendars, Doc? Why can't you guys manage your time better? Tell me.
I I struggle with that all the time, Joe. And we try to get better at that, and we're starting to use technology to help us get better at that. But sometimes people need more time, and sometimes they need less time, and it's always juggling that. And then if the emergency room calls you with someone that's just got in a car accident, or one of your patients fell and broke a femur, I mean, there's so many different ways that you get pulled in different directions, and I was particularly struggled with this, and I tried to tell my patients, listen, if you're the person in the ER, you'd want me to respond. Um, and so please forgive me, and understand that I'm trying to do this. But that's not necessarily an excuse. I think that technology can help us be more on time and be more mindful of that, as well as our staff can help us with that. But I also don't want the patient to feel rushed. I also don't want the patient to feel like I don't care, like I'm too busy and I got to go on to the next patient. So that is that balance, that art of being of doing what we do, and realizing that that is an issue, and that is an issue that we need to address in much better fashion than what we've been able to in the last forever.
It's wild. Doc, it's funny. The other day, we were just chatting, me and my family and friends, and we are talking about. I think there was like we were talking about the Gene Hackman thing, where Gene Hackman was suffering from
Yeah.
dementia and passed away, and someone brought up like, man, isn't it crazy that like dementia is so prevalent now? And again, as you can tell, Doc, I'm very simple minded. My takeaway was, I think it's just because we're living longer and we're living longer. And so we're seeing dementia and obviously we're more aware of it. So the combination of people staying on this planet longer and the fact that we're more aware of symptoms of it just means it. So I'm going to tie this into orthopedics. As I just mentioned, Doc, people are living longer and sometimes those bones and joints just go to hell as they get older. What's it like been over to like the last 20, 30 years as you practice? Is there more people getting orthopedic surgery? Is it the same? Because I almost feel like the fact that we're living longer, it puts a strain on healthcare.
Yes, there are more people getting orthopedic surgery, and in terms of joint replacement, obviously, as we live longer, then we also tend to end up needing total hips, total knees, total shoulders done as we age. And there's a number of things, okay? As a society, we are also getting it at a much younger age. And we're not putting up with the pain that perhaps our parents put up with, or our grandparents put up with, because they didn't really have a choice. Now you have a choice. And our technology is getting better so that we can put these things in younger people and it lasts longer, hopefully lasts them their lifetime. And so we can address their pain and their deformities at an earlier age than what we used to. So on both ends, so the younger ones are getting it earlier in life, and the people are living longer, so they're also getting more. So yes, the volume is increasing. And now we have all these baby boomers who are at this age where we see them needing total knees, total hips, and shoulder replacements. And so those things that just accentuates, it's geometric almost, the numbers that we're seeing in terms of the needs for joint replacement. And then it's happening all over the world too, because as technology spreads, and for example, I had fellows from Latin America, and so I trained a number of surgeons who are now their top surgeons in Mexico and Venezuela and Chile. These so it's kind of like, you can, and this is on my mission trip, I can give a fish, okay? But as a fellow, I can train you how to fish, and then you can provide that benefit to other people. And that is really cool to be able to do that, because I see the fruits of some of the things that I've done now expanded in a multiplied in multiple ways. So it's cool.
Yeah, Doc, I like how you slipped a little biblical in there. Teach them how to fish. I think I believe that's a Bible passage if I'm not if I'm not mistaken.
Something like that. Yeah.
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 All right. So one thing I find remarkable about orthopedics is the recovery time. So my mom, who just celebrated her 75th birthday, she got a knee replacement about a decade ago. And I've known a lot of people in my life. Luckily, as I grow older, I'm seeing a lot of people getting stuff replaced in their body. The fact that you guys want these people to get up and at them as soon as they've had a surgery, like a neighbor of mine got hip surgery, the next day they're walking around. It, Doc, everything else in the world, the medical, take a few days off, sit down, relax. You orthopedics, are you guys just like sadistic? Like, what is it about this recovery time where people are able to get up and going as soon as the surgery's done?
So yes and no. So 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 I do. Um, I'm. The last numbers that I looked at, I was 85% outpatient. So that means that 85% of the patients I did went home 2 to 3 hours after surgery. That's after a total knee, a total hip, or a total shoulder. And the reason I'm able to do that is because of the what we call multimodal approach. In other words, there's education ahead of time, there's preparation on the part of the patient, there's things like cryotherapy, that's ice therapy that I have them get. We now have laser, we have electrical stem. These are some of the newer technologies that are just starting to come aboard. But I did a whole symposium on this at the American Hip and Knee Society with a colleague of mine, and we have now with certain medications, the and certain numbing medicine that we use in during surgery and certain blocks, that we can make those first 2 days that are the most painful almost no pain at all
Wow.
or very little pain, and my goal is to never have you take a narcotic or an opioid. You should never have to take a narcotic or an opioid if you have a multimodal pain pathway, if you use a cryotherapy, if you use these assistive things and follow the instructions. So, Joe, we used to tell people, okay, walk, 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 get up and go, go, go. But we're pulling back from that a little bit. Yes, we're going to send you home. Yes, we want you to get up and move. But what we have found is that swelling is the most important thing. And if you have, for example, if you have a knee replacement and you get up and you walk, you're going to be Mr. Tough Guy. You walk, a block that first day, your knee's going to swell up like a balloon, and then you're going to have pain and it's going to set you back. So what we found is we have to limit step count. So I'll give you an actual prescription that says, okay, the first day you can only walk 750 steps, and you can only do that the first week, and then the second week you can walk 1,000 steps, and the week after that, and we all have, you know, eye watches, or you have your cell phone, and you can actually keep track of these things. So we backed off. We've changed our focus. Okay, we've changed our focus from not necessarily going at it and being the person that's gonna, I'm gonna make this work and I'm gonna go as hard as I can, to realize that biology still takes time. You still have to heal. Okay. And everything that we're doing now is to keep the swelling down. If we can keep the swelling down, your motion will be there because it's not swollen. You'll recover faster and you'll be walking and doing all the things that you want to do in a much faster way. And our technology has gotten so good. Our implants keep changing and we keep getting better with different implants, but the implants aren't changing a huge amount. What's changing is the way we do the surgery, the techniques we use in the surgery, more minimally invasive, and also the pre and post care. We've been able to really make that an important part of your recovery and make it so that your recovery is palatable. And I have a personal experience. I'll tell you, I had both of my knees replaced by one of my friends, and he was 3.5 hours away from me, and I had him done as an outpatient. So I had two bilateral total knee arthroplasties. Um, and I went home 3 hours after my surgery. I never took a pain pill, and I followed the multimodal pain pathway. I never took a narcotic. I never took an opioid after I left the surgery center. And so I'm a walking testimony of how this works.
Oh, that's awesome. Just to satisfy my curiosity, you mentioned 85% folks can just leave the day. What procedures are the ones like that 15% where they're probably going to have to stay overnight or two?
So the 15% are revisions. In other words, you're having a redo, and not all revisions, but a complex revision. And they're people with failure. Okay, they're the people with the heart failure, the lung failure, the liver failure, the kidney failure. those are the people that have that we end up having perhaps to keep overnight and watch longer. Most people with chronic diseases, diabetes, heart disease, lung disease, kidney disease, we can manage that ahead of time, and you have to have a good system. You have to have your family doctor, your primary care provider involved in managing those chronic diseases. Because as an orthopod, I'm not the one to manage those diseases, but if we work together with our colleagues, and those diseases are managed appropriately, uh, there's no reason to be in a hospital. The only reason to be in a hospital is you're sick. What I tell my patients is, okay, you're coming in and we want you as healthy as possible. That's why we sent you to your doctor ahead of time to get tuned up and everything. We want you as healthy as possible. You're coming in, we're just going to change a tire. Okay. And you're not sick, so there's no reason to be in the hospital. We're going to change your tire. We're going to put on a new tire. We're going to send you home. And I think that helps people realize that people, the hospitals are for sick people. You're coming in and you're healthy, and we're just changing a tire, and we're going to send you on your way.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So, Doc, I like to wrap these conversations up by taking folks behind the dedication of the book. And we've mentioned a couple people so far, but you dedicate the book to Sue, my wife, who's always stood by me. And together we made a great team to my kids, Matt and AJ, their families, and my grandkids, and to my awesome families, the Yoders, in parentheses, Outlaws, and the Klaassens. Tell me why it was important to. It sounds like your wife had to put up with a lot of crap being married to a surgeon. So let's start there. Why was it important to dedicate the book to Sue?
Well, Sue has stood by me. We've made a good team. We both look back on our lives together, and she had a large part of this book as well. We look back at our lives together and realize that we have made a good team, and we've supported each other. And we see it in our kids, and our kids are phenomenal. We have 4 grandkids that are phenomenal, and I always joke about my outlaws, who are my in-laws, obviously. Um, but they have also been important. When I was done with medical school and done with the residency and going into orthopedics, my wife gave me a 25-mile radius around Wakarusa, Indiana, and Wakarusa stands for knee deep in mud in Indian language. At any rate, she gave me a 25-mile radius around that to practice medicine because she knew I was going to be busy, and she wanted her family support uh, for raising the kids, and that became very important. The cousins, the family, and because my family was still in Colombia and spread all over. So that was important to us, and it has paid off. And Sue has been a very important part of making this happen. Without her, this would have been very difficult to raise a family, and her dedication is essential. And then my kids, they realize what we've done, and I think they have taken that also to heart and made that important on their families. Sue and I are going on our 48th anniversary, and our kids have wonderful wives and wonderful um, grandkids. The grandkids are phenomenal. They're a joy. My oldest granddaughter is getting baptized this Sunday. So actually, I'm flying back to Indiana just for her baptism. Both Sue and I are going. So those are things that we just value, and we think are very important. And as medicine is tough. Any job is tough. It's not just medicine, and any job can be really tough and can be time consuming. You still have to take time to enjoy life, and you need to enjoy life along the way. And you need to have a partner who you can enjoy life with together. And you need to enjoy your kids. You need to enjoy your grandkids. Um, as I look back, I maybe should have spent a little more time when the kids were in high school playing soccer. I probably should have gone to a few more games. Um, But Sue was always there. My wife was always there, and she was always very supportive. Of course, then travel teams. I mean, all these things take time, and time becomes your most important commodity. Um, it, and probably true in anything you do. Think about that and enjoy it along the way too. Don't just work all the time. So I always tell people, you wanna work to live, not live to work.
Awesome. Well, you've come a long way from that leper colony. He is Dr. Mark Klaassen, the author of the book, Voyage, following one surgeon on the journey of a lifetime. Doc, thanks so much for the time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Joey. It was fun. Thank you.
And that's going to do it for this episode of the Authority Company podcast. If you want to find out more information about Dr. Klaassen and all of our amazing authors, go to theauthoritycompany.com.